National Youth Development Agency has been lauded for producing a clean audit for the 5th consecutive year. But the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities has raised concerns over its visibility in rural areas specifically, as well as its work with youth affected by gender-based violence. So let's talk a little bit more about this with Executive Chairperson Sfiso Mchedu, who joins me in studio now. Sfiso, thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I must speak. So first of all, because let's not go with the bad news first. So first of all, congratulations on getting a clean audit for the 5th consecutive year. I know that it was with the current economic climate, sometimes it's about making sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's.
Yes, of course. I think one thing that we wanted to do was to create a credible institution because once you lose credibility in the eyes of the people that you're supposed to serve, doesn't matter what you do. And I think we've worked hard over the last 5 years to really clean up the image of the NYDA and create an institution where we can account for every rand and cent that government actually invests. So we're quite happy, and I can assure you now that it will continue this way. It's no longer news. The NYDA is a well-run institution.
Okay, so I've given you credit. Let's talk real now.
Yeah.
So on one hand, I'm applauding you for the fact that you've received a clean audit over the past 5 years. But on the other side, I'm criticizing you because the very same Portfolio Committee criticized you by saying that they are noting with concern that the targets as the NYDA and the targets that you guys have set for yourself were actually too low, and that several were overachieved looking at the organization's performance. In other words, no wonder you're going to laud yourself as doing well, because the standards that you've set for yourself are already too low. And those are not my words, those are their words. The standards are too low. And then you responded by saying, let me finish. You responded by saying, yes, but the problem here is budget allocation. Well,
I think that's not a holistic response. And by the way, they're not criticizing us. There was a concern that is raised. And I think one of the things that we've made very clear to the Portfolio Committee is that, in fact, we've doubled the targets themselves, especially during my reign as the chair of the NYDA. But I'm saying the one thing that we've always consistently raised is that government invests about 500 million into the NYDA. Annually. Yeah. There's 19 million economically active young people in a country who are all looking for the services of the NYDA. Now, if you take the 19 million and you divide it by 500 million, it means it's 20 rands per person in this country. But even beyond that, the whole budget of our country, we were listening to the finance minister recently, is that government actually in its annual budget has over 1.6 trillion rands. Now, if you take 500 million of 1.6 trillion, that's 0.004% that you're actually spending on the youth, and whereas the youth is actually the majority of the citizens in this country. So the bigger conversation that we had with the Portfolio Committee, and you'll see in their statements towards the end, is that government needs to invest more resources so that we're able to reach more. But it would have been even a bigger tragedy if within the smaller space that you have, that you actually don't even reach your targets, or you actually don't even exceed what you're supposed to do. I think from where we're seated, we're proud of the work that we've done. And I can make an example. In just the last financial year, we've been able to assist 1,200 brand new entrepreneurs. Now, if you were to look at just the 1,200 brand new entrepreneurs that are creating 5 or 6 jobs per entrepreneur, that immediately tells you that there's about 5,600 jobs that have actually been created just through the support that we're making. So I'm saying, yes, indeed, the numbers might not be so huge, but I think whatever that we have, we've been able to be effective in ensuring that we do our work.
And I understand that it's a very sticky point in the sense that you want to be able to be accountable for the money so nobody comes back at you. And as they did in many other years and told you that you guys held a kissing festival. Remember that? We all are still reeling for the fact that the NYDA had a kissing festival. However, at the same time, right, we've got this 500 million. Does the 500 million include or exclude salaries that need to be paid to employees of the NYDA?
It's the total budget of the NYDA.
So in this 500 million, it must pay for your salaries. It must pay for everybody that's working nationally. And then you have to go back to the same government and go back then. And when you go back to them and say, but we need more budget allocated, what do they say to you?
Well, that's why I'm saying it's been a sticky point. And let me go back to the point that we're raising about the so-called Kissing Festival, which happened in 2010. It was a World Federation of Democratic Youth and Students, which discussed a whole range of issues. Of course, the media would have picked up what happened. And I think we've also come through a period of wasteful expenditure and certain things that should not have happened at that time. And I think one thing that we've done over the last 3 to 5 years was to say, let's move away from those things. Let's move away from wasteful expenditure. Let's move away from corruption. Let's move away from a negative perception. Let's move away from kissing and spin the bottle. But let's rather now start focusing on building a credible institution,
100%.
building an institution that will be an activist. Then from there, you can then go back to government and say, the little that you've actually given us, look what we've been able to do. Look what we've been able to intervene on. For instance, I'll make an example. We're the first institution of government that have actually created a scholarship fund, which is called the Solomon Mahlangu Scholarship Fund. This year it has produced 500 graduates. Now, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about tuition. I'm talking about books. I'm talking about food. I'm talking about residents. We're the first institution to say, here's a model of free
And I wanted
education.
to have more time to have a conversation, but my producers are going to literally kick me for having this thing. But on the other side of it, I'm going to say this: when you leave, go back to them and ask them for more money. It makes no sense to me, just as a logical person, that you've got 500 million rand that has been allocated to service a country that has got more than 65% that is consisting of young people, and yet you're supposed to make an indelible mark.
Yes.
That does not make sense. So, and I understand that you have to clean up your image, but now that your image has been cleaned for 5 years, go back to them and say, guys, we need more money if you're going to be doing and servicing the young people.
I think also yourselves, you must assist us in that regard, because this money is supposed to ensure that youth development in this country actually happens. And we've been making noise, by the way. And I'm saying, by the way, there seems to be a positive, response now. If you listen to the recent budget speech by the minister, I think going forward, we said, by the way, to government that as a start, at least invest R1 billion into youth development.
Well, they're listening to you right now.
Well,
I'm
they have
hoping that
to
they're
listen.
listening to you right
They
now.
have to listen. They have to listen, because if they don't listen, those young people are going to be on their doorstep, because young people can no longer afford to sit in a street corner and wait for things that are going to take time for them to come. Let's invest in the youth of this country and make sure that their lives actually improve for the better.
There we go. You have it there, the NYDA speaking about the work that needs to be done. But you had